Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome to my review of DLC 3 River of Blood in Back 4 Blood. I reviewed every single DLC within Back 4 Blood, and I've even made a 1 year later review video for Back 4 Blood about a few months ago. But this is going to end up being basically my last big review for the game because this is the final big DLC for their current Season Pass model that I still have yet to review. So throughout this video, I'm going to be listing the things that I liked that Back 4 Blood added within this last DLC, the things I didn't like, and also just some closing thoughts on what I believe that Turtle Rock can do to Back 4 Blood if they would like to continue updating in the future and give it some quality of life improvements. So let's talk about everything that I liked within DLC 3 of Back 4 Blood. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is going to be the brand new cleaner or character, which is called Tala. Now, in terms of Tala's character arc, she's supposed to basically be a former cultist member, because in this DLC they continued the DLC 2 storyline with the cult. Now, Tala is actually the sister of the brother that we actually rescued in DLC 2, who in this DLC is revealed to be called Derek. So there's going to end up being some dialogue themed around these two that's pretty interesting toward the story. Now, even though character arc is all fun and dandy, how good is Tala within the meta of the game? Is she a good cleaner to pick? And I would say yes, because she has two abilities that are really strong within the game. Number one is going to be the fact that she can spawn in cursed boxes within the overworld. So you know those gas boxes that you can find in Ridden Hives that give you a whole bunch of extremely good loot? Tala can spawn that in the normal overworld by you just having her in the lobby. You do not need to go into a Ridden Hive now to get Ridden Hive type of loot. This is huge. You can get god tier weapons and god tier equipment by just simply playing the game, just because Tala is within your team. The second other really good ability is going to end up being able to summon Jeff, who is a AI tallboy that can assist you within combat. If you have Tala within your squad, you can go around a map and end up having a chance of finding a whistle. With this whistle that would go into your quick slot, you can summon Jeff. Anybody can pick up this whistle, and anybody can use this whistle. You don't specifically have to be Tala, she just has to be in the lobby for this whistle to spawn in. And this allows you to essentially have like a fifth teammate who doesn't end up getting damaged necessarily the way you do. And a tall boy is a tall boy in Back 4 Blood and still is really strong, so having one on your team is extremely nice. I personally would prefer Tala for her abilities rather than her character arc. I think that in terms of character arc, I like people like Charisse and Dan more, whereas I think that Hang and Tala are more useful for their abilities personally. Now let's move on to another thing that I'm very happy that is finally out within this game, and that's going to be a brand new Special Infected. And no, I am not talking about 5th version of Hawker over here. I'm talking about like a brand new, unique to its own Special Infected. There is a brand new special in the game called the Sentinel, which is basically like this underground burrowing zombie that can end up jump scaring you if you are not careful enough. There's going to be 3 variants of the Sentinel. There's going to be the Lobber, the Swarmer, and also the Whaler. The Lobber is going to shoot these little projectiles at you out of its mouth to hit you long distance. The Swarmer is going to end up having insects come out of its mouth, so that way it can also attack you with the bug effect that you would sort of see within Versus mode. And then there's going to be the Whaler, which also uses like a gas particle effect to end up killing you. All in all, I think that these are very unique versions of a brand new Special Infected, and I'm just so glad that we did not get a 5th version of a Tallboy or a Hawker or whatever the hell you want to call these things. They all have so many names I can't keep track of them anymore. It's such a headache. But the fact that we have just a brand new Special Infected by itself, it's so rewarding, man. Thank you, Turtle Rock, for finally adding in something new. It's not perfect, and I get that, and that's fine. But I'm just glad that you guys listened and just didn't reskin the same Special Infected again. Speaking of Special Infected, let's also talk about another brand new one that was added within the game, and this is going to end up being the final boss of DLC 3 called the Harbinger. So, within DLC 3, the very last mission is going to end up having another abomination type of zombie, who is called the Harbinger. I am very glad that the game decided to end off with a boss fight, because I would say that if Back 4 Blood ended off with just any generic campaign ending, it wouldn't have felt satisfying. Because this is the last big hoorah, and this is supposed to be the ending of the base story of the game, there needed to be something special, and I'm glad that they decided to make another boss within the game. The Abomination, in my opinion, I do think is better. I think that the Abomination boss fight is just more fun. But I do say that the Harbinger is definitely really fun as well. It's just a different type of fun because the Harbinger is not exactly as hard, so it's not really as rewarding. But I will say this is that easy doesn't necessarily mean bad. It just does get a little bit repetitive after a while, and it's much more like rewarding long term just to play something against, like, let's say the Abomination. And here's another thing that Turtle Rock finally added that I'm also very happy about. A brand new game mode. They have a brand new game mode within Back 4 Blood that is called Trial of the Worm. Now, for those of you guys that have not seen my Trial of the Worm gameplay video, let me explain what the brand new game mode is all about. Essentially, this is going to end up being a high score driven game mode, where you end up playing on a variety of different maps that have existed throughout the game, and you can end up having these modifiers where you can choose to make the game as difficult as you wish for the possibility of getting higher rewards, such as more supply points. There's going to be 4 rounds within a game, and each round you're going to have 3 different random maps to pick from, with also their own unique corruption modifying cards, and you have to pick which one you want to play on. And you can end up also playing on the Hive maps as well. You end up picking these maps and have to play them as normal till completion, and then you load up and rinse and repeat again. Now, every single time that you do this, you end up having a chance to be able to get a lot of supply points. Like, I mean a lot. In fact, you can get so much XP that you can basically end up getting pretty much every single supply line done within a couple of hours. It's ridiculous. So not only are you getting the chance to be able to get more supply points in a quicker and more fun way, in my personal opinion, but you also get the ability to show off a high score to your friends because there is lobby leaderboards for this game mode. So whatever the current scores that you have, you can look at and compare it to your friends, or you can even compare it to people that are also online and just see who is the best at this particular game mode. So this finally gives us something else to play other than the base campaign, and just in my opinion, still to this day, very lackluster versus mode. And so now we have 3 modes within the game, where one is really good and solid, the other one is just meh okay, because I don't like Trial of the Worm that much, but it's still better than nothing in my opinion. And then Versus, which I just have zero desire to play. And then finally, for my last good thing to say about this DLC, this is going to end up being the cosmetics. The cosmetics within DLC 3 are much better than they last were in DLC 2. I think that there's a lot more very fun skins that are within the game because they weren't trying to make them realistic or fit within the story. They just made just simply good skins just because they look cool. Not only that, but they also made full-on fledged outfits rather than just adding a baseball cap or, like, let's say a pair of cargo pants like they've done before. Because there's the main outfits within the game, and then there's just these single little pieces of clothing that you can customize and just put on a character for pretty much filler. But I understand where they're coming from that, but I'm glad that they committed more to actual full-blown outfits. Alright, now that we've talked about all the things that I like within DLC 3 of Back 4 Blood, let's talk about the few things that I do not like within DLC 3, and the stuff that I do believe needs to be changed or at least tweaked. Number 1, this is going to end up being the progression system within the game for the cosmetics. So when the game first came out, the supply lines in Back 4 Blood made sense. They were basically like a free version of a battle pass. Now I know a lot of people are over and sick of battle passes, but the Turtle Rock version of them are actually really enjoyable because they're not going to expire on you, and you also don't have to pay for them, and you can just simply unlock them over time by just playing the game, which is nice. And then within DLC 1, it was a little bit different, but I still at least tolerated it. It was going to end up being the Skull Totem system, where basically you would go into the Ridden Hives, you would collect the melee weapons that are within the hive, and you would end up bringing them to the end of the map with you, and you would redeem them as a currency. Now here's the thing, the last 2 DLCs have had annoying progression systems for earning all their stuff. The second DLC had the duffel bag system, which had to end up being changed because it was just way too frustrating. And for those that don't remember the way that the system worked, let me explain. The original way that the system worked is that you would end up finding these duffel bags that were around the map. Now when you would pick up these duffel bags, they wouldn't just go into your inventory and just disappear. They would occupy your quick slot, which would basically end up being very similar to, like, let's say the specimen samples. So it wasn't exactly the worst thing, But here's the main problem with these duffel bags, is that number one, a single duffel bag was only good for like a single item, literally one single item, and sometimes you would end up getting a good thing or a bad thing, like let's say a good or a bad card, which could really just end up being like really shitty feeling when you end up wasting all that time to get a duffel bag just to end up getting a very lackluster card. Second of all, the way that you would earn these duffel bags would also be a pain in the ass because they would be so drip fed. Because guess what? You could only originally find them in Act 5. You could not find them in any other campaign the entire game. Now in hindsight, this wouldn't be so bad. However, though, these duffel bags would only spawn in one chapter at a time, which means that you could only get 5 in an entire game, and you were never even guaranteed to find one because they would always end up being in some of the worst possible spots that you can imagine. They would never be visible, they would always be tucked in some back weird corner, and you would just really have a hard time grinding these things, and they weren't as clear and as fun to grind as the previous DLC or the base game. Here's the thing now with DLC 3 though, is that within DLC 3 we do not have supply lines like we did within the base game. We also don't end up having the skull totem lines like we did within DLC 1. Instead, we just end up having the fucking duffel bag system again. I feel like Turtle Rock seriously dropped the ball with the way that you earn cosmetics within the last 2 DLCs. The base game, absolutely perfect. I love the supply line system. It made sense and it was crystal clear. DLC 1, although be it wasn't my favorite, it at least made sense and I could get behind it. The last 2 DLCs though, this duffel bag system has just been stupid and needs to be fixed, man. It has to go. Now, Turtle Rock, I understand that you are not releasing content at the speed of light. I get that you're not a Fortnite and not an Epic Games, and you can't make content weekly, so you do have to a certain degree have a drip-fed system. I understand that logically. But here's the thing. Games are not meant to be logical. They are meant to be fun. I know that the game is over and you're probably not going to be doing any big updates anymore unless stated otherwise. But if you do, and even if you don't end up planning on doing any more big updates, I still, honest to God, think you can't leave the game this way. You do need to make it a lot more fun and earnable to earn these last 2 DLCs worth of cosmetics, because we did pay money for them, and I would like to see them. I think that you should end up making a supply line revamp where you put everything back in the way that you either did the DLC 1 supply lines, where you end up doing the skull totems, or you end up even doing the base supply line that you had when the game first launched. Because this duffel bag system is stupid, and nobody's going to, honest to God, dedicate the time or justify doing this. This is going to be one of those few things that's just going to sit in a lock state on our game screens, because nobody's going to want to take the time to grind this. Because it's not like you can just get it over with. You have to end up concentrating so damn hard at a very difficult and tedious game to try to sometimes just barely not die. And after all that, just to end up having a chance, a single chance, to get one item out of hundreds is going to be so time consuming. You forfeit so much of other stuff in your life to get that. And Turtle Rock, I know that you end up having lives outside of your games, so why can't we? Why do we have to treat this like it's a second job to be able to get the things that we thought were just going to end up being a side hustle or a hobby? Like, you see how that this doesn't make any sense? We just want to be able to get on the game for a few hours because we solely want to, and we want to earn the cosmetics that you're offering us, but it has to be done the right way. Because if it's too difficult and not fun, it will just sit there and not be earned. Here's going to end up being another thing. Now, I gave this the benefit of the doubt within the first 2 DLCs, but after having all the DLCs be out at this point, I noticed a very bad habit of Turtle Rock basically doing the same copy and paste pretty much with this, and this is going to end up being the achievements. So when it comes to achievements within video games, I don't grind them nearly as much as I used to. I used to do them a lot during the Xbox 360 era, but I still, honest to God, love the concept of achievements. I just don't always go for them because certain games are more better than others for achievements, but Back 4 Blood I felt like had a lot of promise because Back 4 Blood had some pretty unique achievements at launch that were really fun to earn. I even made some guides around them. But I do think that with the last few DLCs, especially towards the end here, that they were very lacking in terms of novelty. Because the Back 4 Blood DLC achievements, they were just very logical and just associated with the gameplay, which you would think would end up being a good thing. but they were either way too easy and you would earn them within, like, literally a single match, and so there was nothing to earn at that point. Or number two, they were just a ways to get more of the cosmetics. Like, for example, how many times have you seen play 250 matches to end up getting this skin for this character? Or how many times have you seen use this gun on a certain special infected? Or end up doing this particular thing within the gameplay? Very, almost blueprint type of stuff, and it wasn't unique or fun to show off. Like, why couldn't we have achievements such as, I don't know, if I'm thinking on the spot here, like, don't end up shooting the hag or getting killed by the hag the moment that they're summoned within an entire campaign. Like, you just ignore the hag like how you used to with the witch, but with the way the mechanics are, it would be a lot more difficult. Or make it where, like, kill the breaker before he's able to summon in his locust storm. Stuff like that. That would end up being a genuinely impressive thing and would be worth showing off. But instead, we get a lot of these copy and paste, like play 250 matches with this character and end up unlocking the skin, or like use this weapon within the game that we just added and end up unlocking like a calling card. Everyone can do that, and it's not really special. Achievements are like another layer to a game and give you more incentive to keep playing. Because there's the base game where you end up playing the story, playing the multiplayer, trying to get somewhat good at it, and you can say like, hey, I'm good at this game, then you can justify to yourself, okay, maybe it's time to move on. But an achievement is like that little cherry on top. It's like, you know what, I could drop this game, I feel like I'm decently good at it, and I played the base story, but I would really love to show off this, or I really would love to do this, because if I can do this, I can get better. But when your achievements are not about beating the game or about getting better at the game and are instead just simply withstanding the game and just playing for a certain amount of hours, it's not really fun anymore. Okay, and now we move on to my last dislike of the third DLC. And this is going to end up being the conclusion of the Back 4 Blood story. So when it comes to the Back 4 Blood story, I am not going to be talking about the base game because I have talked about that in prior reviews. I am only going to be talking about specifically the cultist storyline. And I'm mostly going to be talking about it from the second half within DLC 3, although at points, and probably really quickly here at the beginning, I'm going to need to talk about the ones within Act 5 or in the second DLC just to give some context to the story and how we got up to this point. So let's talk about the cultist story in a brief summary real quick. So, essentially within the second DLC, we get introduced to Dan, who is going to end up being a brand new cleaner or survivor that we meet. Dan is telling us about the zombie cult that ended up kidnapping his people, and he is asking for us to help him rescue them. So we go all the way over to this island where we end up meeting the cultist people, and we are trying to rescue Dan's followers. Now within this DLC, we end up rescuing a variety of different people, and then we decide to go back home. But before we can go back home, we need to end up killing all the different cultist members that are basically keeping this place on lockdown. As the survivors are trying to escape, they eventually run into a zombified young boy, who at the time was unnamed, but we later found out his name is Derek, and he is the younger brother to Tala, who is the brand new cleaner within the game. Derek decides to end up being a good guy and trying to save us in hopes that he will also end up being able to escape with us. However though, even though we escape, he ends up getting imprisoned by the other cultist members because he betrayed them. Now fast forward to DLC 3, we meet Tala, who is going to once again, like I said, be Derek's sister. Now we end up explaining how that we need to end up going back and not only killing the cultist members and stopping them, but we also need to end up saving Derek because he saved us back in the previous DLC. So we end up with the assistance of Tala, we end up going to try to kill the cultists and get Derek back. Now we end up getting into a situation where we are trying to not only kill all the cultists, but we're also trying to kill the Harbinger, which is just this giant zombie freak that the cultists have made over the last several months. It is at this point where we have now got the last big hoorah for our survivors. It's either do or die. They end up fighting the Harbinger, and eventually they win and they kill it. The problem is, though, is the very, very end for me. There is two questions that never got answered that I feel like need to be addressed. And number one is going to end up being the cultist mother. The mother within the cultist group is essentially going to end up being their leader. She's the one that's trying to organize all this BS. But the thing is, though, is that she's still alive come the end of the game. My question is that, why is it that the mother just gives up so easily at the end of the game? Why is it that all she's doing is just mourning the death of the Harbinger, which is her freak creation, and not trying to get revenge on the crew? I understand that this ends up possibly leaving a opportunity for either a Back 4 Blood 2 or just another DLC expansion. That's probably why that they did this. Either that or just Turtle Rock simply forgot. But if this was supposed to be the last DLC and there's no future DLC planned, why did we not fight the mother and also kill her too? Because now she's alive and she has the possibility of doing all this stuff over again and just making another zombie freak. Here's another thing I want to talk about is why is that Tala and Derek not zombies within the storyline? Or rather, how did they not become zombies within the storyline? Because, see, from the way I look at it, within Back 4 Blood's story, if you get infected with that worm parasite thing, you are screwed. You will basically become a zombie and end up turning into a flesh-eating freak. The problem is, though, is with these zombie cultist people, they have this ability to end up being zombified while still keeping an essence of their conscience and sort of their humanity, so that way they can use this to infect other people. So why is it that Tala and Derek are not cultists as well? Why are they not fallen under the trance that everybody else is? Why is it that they are suddenly different? Especially given the fact that they were infected by the worm. Derek especially ends up having the possibility of falling under this trap because he got recaptured by these people. You would think that he would only have one chance to escape, and he didn't, and he got recaptured. So sure, Tala I can see maybe like got by the skin of her teeth by some sort of thing that you can write off within the story, but Derek got recaptured. Why is it that he was just completely left alone and was just only locked up in a jail cell that was at the bottom of the basement? Why did they not try to turn him even further and make him an enemy? Or at the very least, why didn't they just kill him? Why did they keep him alive? Did they use it as a way to get the survivors to come back? Did they use them as leverage? Because we were going to come back here anyways to murder them all, regardless if Derek was alive. It's just like, why did they let Derek live? It's only also at the very last cutscene that we even see a somewhat human version of Derek because his zombified look starts to wear off. His eyes, for example, return back to normal and they're not glowing yellow like they are throughout the base game. So which is it then? Is the zombie virus going to end up being a end-all be-all and you can't end up changing your fate? Or it's something that you can end up modifying so that way you can end up being able to use it as more of a bioweapon, and there is some people that are immune and can also be cured. Because I really don't know where we're supposed to stand here. What's the difference between a cultist and a zombie? Why is it that some people don't fully turn? I would like that to be elaborated upon, please, Turtle Rock. Alright everybody, so this is going to end up being my review of DLC 3, River of Blood within Back 4 Blood, and I do truly hope you guys end up enjoying. Let me know what you have thought about Back 4 Blood over this last year. Have you liked the Season Pass? Have you liked all the content that they have added throughout this game? Let me know what your thoughts are on the final version, the final product of Back 4 Blood in the comment section down below. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like. If you would like to financially support the channel, I would tremendously appreciate if you guys could go check out my Patreon. It is always linked down below in all my YouTube video descriptions. And also please use my supporter creator code BlackNinja797 in all caps in the Fortnite and Epic Games item shops, because Epic is my very first sponsor and they are sponsoring today's video, so shout out to Epic Games. But yeah guys, I hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers you're ever going to see. Thank you for watching guys, I love all of you. And peace out.
Hey meme lords, Jesus here. And you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!